Do you ever wonder why African nations, rich in resources, are among the poorest in the world? A question that ricocheted in the mind of a young man born as Stelio Gil Robert Capocicci in France in the year 1981. A question that would spark the flame of a revolutionary mind. Stelio, later known to the world as Kemi Seba, was not born in the cradle of Africa. He was born in the heart of France, a country that, to many, symbolizes the Western powers he would come to challenge, an irony that is as poetic as it is profound. As a child, Kemi was no different from any other. He laughed, he played, he learned. But as he grew, so did his curiosity. His eyes started to take in the world around him, and what he saw puzzled him. He saw his ancestral homeland, rich in resources, languishing in poverty. He saw the Western powers, his own nation included, thriving while African nations struggled. And he wondered why. This question led him down a path of exploration and self-discovery. He delved into the history of Africa, its colonization, and its continued economic exploitation. He saw a pattern, a cycle of domination that kept African nations in a state of dependency and economic stagnation. And he felt a burning desire to change it. Kemi's journey of understanding wasn't an easy one. It was a path fraught with complexities and contradictions. But it was through navigating these complexities that Kemi's revolutionary spirit was born. It was here that he found his purpose, to challenge the economic structures that he believed were keeping Africa in chains, and to promote the interests of African nations. In his heart, a seed of revolution was planted, a seed that would grow to become a towering tree, its branches reaching out to touch the hearts and minds of those who shared his vision for a self-determined and economically independent Africa. In the heart of France, a seed of revolution was planted in a young man's mind. His name was Kemi Seba, and his story was just beginning. Stelio Gil Robert Capocicci was no more. In his place stood Kemi Seba. This change of identity was more than just a name switch. It was a transformation rooted in his growing conviction that the African continent was shackled by economic exploitation and political domination by Western powers. The new name, Kemi Seba, was a bold declaration of his commitment to challenge this status quo. Seba's metamorphosis was not an overnight event. It was the culmination of a journey that saw him increasingly involved in movements and initiatives aimed at empowering Africa, both economically and politically. He was no longer just Stelio Capocicci, a French-born individual. He was Kemi Seba, a Pan-African activist, a voice for the continent he felt was silenced by neo-colonial forces. His advocacy for African unity was not just about geographical consolidation. It was a stand for self-determination, a call for African nations to reclaim control of their destinies. Seba became an ardent believer in the idea that Africa's future should be determined by Africans themselves, not by external forces with vested interests. Economic independence, too, was a cornerstone of his mission. Seba was convinced that the key to Africa's prosperity lay in breaking free from the chains of economic dominance. His vision was of an Africa that was not just rich in resources, but also in its ability to manage and benefit from these resources. Yet, this transformation into Kemi Seba was not without controversy. His outspoken views and unorthodox methods often drew criticism. But whether you agreed with him or not, one thing was undeniable. Kemi Seba was a force to be reckoned with, a man unafraid to challenge established norms and institutions. His transformation was complete. Stelio Gilis Robert Capocicci was no more. In his place stood Kemi Seba, a man ready to fight for an Africa that was united, self-determined, and economically independent. Kemi Seba was ready to challenge the status quo. Not all heroes wear capes, some wield controversy. Enter Kemi Seba, a figure that has stirred the political waters both in Africa and abroad. His methods and statements, while provocative, have ignited passionate debates and drawn attention to issues that are often swept under the rug. Kemi Seba is no stranger to controversy. His unflinching stance against what he perceives as the economic exploitation of African nations by Western powers has led to him being both revered and reviled. His boldness in challenging the status quo has endeared him to many who believe in his cause, but it has also attracted a fair share of critics. Some of his critics argue that his methods are too extreme, that they do more harm than good. They claim that his confrontational approach only serves to alienate potential allies and undermines the very cause he claims to champion. They point to incidents like his arrest in Senegal in 2017 as examples of his recklessness. Yet his supporters see a different side of the story. To them, Kemi Seba is a beacon of resistance against economic oppression. They argue that his actions, while controversial, are necessary to shake up the complacency that allows the exploitation to continue. They see his arrest not as a mark of recklessness, but as a testament to his commitment to his cause. The controversy surrounding Kemi Seba is not simply about his methods, but also about his statements. His outspoken views on the neo-colonial influence of France in African economic affairs have ruffled many feathers. He does not mince words when it comes to criticizing the financial systems that he believes are keeping African nations in a state of economic dependence. Yet through all the controversies and criticisms, Kemi Seba remains unyielding. He continues to push for African unity, self-determination, and economic independence. His story is a testament to the power of conviction, and a reminder that change often comes hand in hand with controversy. Kemi Seba was not a man to be silenced by criticism. His voice, no matter how controversial, continues to echo in the chambers of African politics and beyond. A single note burnt, a powerful message sent. In the year 2017, Kemi Seba, a name that had already become synonymous with activism, made headlines once again. This time, the setting was Senegal, and the stage was a public protest. The object of his defiance? A single 5,000 CFA franc note. The CFA franc is a currency shared by several African countries. Its roots trace back to the colonial era, with its value tied to the French treasury. This link has been a bone of contention, with critics viewing it as a remnant of colonial control over Africa's economy. Seba, in his characteristic style, took this criticism and amplified it. He did so not through words, but through an act of symbolic defiance. In the midst of the protest, Seba set a 5,000 CFA franc note ablaze. This act was more than just the destruction of a piece of legal tender. It was a powerful statement against what Seba saw as the economic exploitation of African nations by Western powers. This act of burning currency did not go unnoticed. It sparked controversy, igniting a debate that extended far beyond the borders of Senegal. Supporters saw it as a bold statement against neo-colonialism, a call for economic independence. Critics, on the other hand, saw it as an act of lawlessness, a disregard for the norms of civil protest. Regardless of one's opinion on the act, its impact was undeniable. Seba was promptly arrested, which only served to further fuel the fiery debate. Some argued that his arrest was an attempt to silence a voice of dissent. Others saw it as a just consequence of his actions. In the end, whether one lauds or condemns Seba's act, it cannot be denied that it was a symbolic act of defiance. It was a statement that resonated across Africa and beyond, a statement against perceived economic subjugation. Kemi Seba had set a fire that could not be extinguished. For some a firebrand, for others a beacon of change. Kemi Seba, born as Stelio Gil Robert Capochichi, a name that embodies controversy, activism, and unyielding determination. From his birth in the bustling streets of France to his transformative journey into Kemi Seba, this man has been a whirlwind of change and passion. His story is a testament to his unwavering dedication to the cause of African unity, self-determination, and economic independence. Through various movements and initiatives, he has tirelessly worked to challenge the economic structures that he perceives as the neo-colonial shackles binding African nations. His belief in the potential of Africa to stand on its own feet, independent and unfettered, has been the driving force behind his activism. One cannot forget the symbolic act of defiance in 2017, when he burnt a 5,000 CFA franc note. The protest, while controversial, was a significant gesture against the perceived economic exploitation by Western powers, particularly France. The CFA franc, a currency tethered to the French treasury, became the symbol of this exploitation, and Seba's act was a firm refusal to accept such a system. His actions have sparked intense debates, with supporters lauding his courage and critics questioning his methods. Yet, regardless of the side of the argument one falls on, it's undeniable that Kemi Seba has left an indelible mark on the landscape of African politics. His influence has extended beyond borders, igniting discussions about economic independence, self-determination, and the future of Africa. His legacy, like the man himself, is complex and multifaceted. It's a legacy of challenging the status quo, of pushing boundaries, and of daring to dream of an Africa that can stand tall in the global community. It's a legacy of controversy, yes, but also of courage and conviction. Kemi Seba, a name that will echo in the annals of African history. His story is not just a tale of an individual, but a testament to the power of belief, the courage to challenge, and the undying spirit of activism.